for January 2025. This meeting is being held in compliance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6 et sec. Annual notice being forwarded to the New Jersey Herald and the Daily Record. It was posted on the bulletin board maintained in the municipal building for public announcements. And the roll call.
Mr. Falcone.
Present.
Ms. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Kusivic.
Here.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Here.
Ms. Smith.
Here.
And Mayor Galati.
Here. If you'll join me in the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, a motion is in order to open to the public for public comment.
So made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is open to the public for anything and everything that they would like to discuss. Anyone? Not seeing anyone. Motion to bring it back.
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
In front of you, you have resolution 2025-40 for the affordable housing confirmation. The resolution of the Borough of Paccon, County of Sussex, State of New Jersey, committing to DCA's fourth round affordable housing, present need and prospective need numbers and modified. We have our planner, Joe is here. Would you like to give us just a little synopsis?
One of these up.
Sure.
To hear me, right?
Well, they'll hear you on the little,
The little
no,
triangle,
okay, I didn't see that.
actually,
I
yeah.
didn't see that.
on the triangle.
New technology. So I will be brief and thanks for your time tonight. Joe Vuch from Van Cleef Engineering and Associates. I am your planner. We conducted an analysis of the fourth round housing obligation, the calculations by DCA that are provided with methodology and background in DCA's published reports. The numbers that are in front of you tonight are a present need and a prospective need. The present need as calculated by DCA, it was 3, and the prospective need 306. There's in the present need is calculated based on essentially looking at Uniform Construction Code records, housing stock, and the overall rehabilitation of housing stock in the area, identifying where there may be roofs that need to be repaired, other electrical that might be outdated, permits and compliance, and compiling all of the portions of factors and accumulating them up to get to that 3 need. That analysis is an analysis that review and requires extensive surveys and research that is not within the time limitations provided by DCA. It is not part of our analysis here tonight. That number is in front of you as 3 and is to be accepted as 3 as part of the resolution. The prospective need includes 3 capacity factors. There's a land capacity factor, a income capacity factor, as well as an equal as non-residential valuation factor. Those 3 factors weigh equally together to get an average allocation, and that average allocation becomes basically our percentage of the overall region. Now, our region includes multiple municipalities in multiple counties. It's Bergen, Passaic, Hudson, Sussex, all the way out this way, right? And including portions of Morris. The analysis that we've performed and we're able to provide a recommended reduction is limited to the land capacity factor. And that being in part because that is the reasonable factors that can be reviewed in the time that was permitted, as well as the cost benefit ratio opportunity of reviewing that portion of the document in the methodology that was prescribed and finding errors in the analysis. It's a heavily GIS dependent analysis. The equalized non-residential valuation factor is essentially looking at your housing stock and the valuation of homes in the area and relative to the region. It's more factually based and based on housing stock data, sales data records. The income capacity factor is very factually based on census information. So those two are to go into an in-depth study of non-residential valuation factor would have required extensive windshield surveys, door knocking, evaluation, essentially part of what you would do in like a tax reevaluation process, much more comprehensive and would likely not yield much of an impact. That factor is 0.29 and the income factor is 0.81. So the lion's share of our factor came from the land capacity that started at 2.21. And the DCA's published numbers identified 78 features, and these, we call them features because they are basically shapes in GIS that are unconstrained lands that they believe qualify as eligible based on the methodology. And doing that, they total up to 43.77 acres. We, in our review, looked at additional planning good practices and judgment on what the DCA's report started with and some of the what we termed as geospatial artifacts, essentially the carving up of parcels based on one constraint or another, leaving a remainder that became the feature, and that remainder was on a parcel in, say, the rear of the parcel while the front was heavily constrained by steep slopes and other issues. So the viability of developing that small portion of the parcel is not appropriate to have been included in the calculation. This was inherent to DCA's analysis. They knew that they had strict guidelines from the legislation, that they were only allowed to evaluate and look at the parcels to a certain extent, and then the data had to speak for itself. So there was room for this analysis statewide. Our analysis concluded that there were 31 of the 78 features, approximately 40%, that had issues and were erroneously included by DCA. And that totaled to 13.54 acres to be removed from the total. That acreage is roughly 31% of the total acreage. So we're talking about between 30 and 40% that the analysis concluded to remove. In our analysis, much of that was characterized based on planning areas 4 and 5, the state planning master plan, which in previous rounds of affordable housing were provided a 0 factor for the eligibility, and in this round again were provided a 0 factor. So they would have essentially become ineligible by being in the planning areas 4 and 5. Then anything with a sewer service in areas 4 and 5 was incorporated back in as eligible with a 1.0 factor. So anywhere that our sewer service area existed inside of planning areas 4 and 5, and essentially our whole municipality is planning areas 4 and 5, was then brought back into play. And that's how we wound up with acreage in the features. What our review found is there's a lot of geospatial artifacts of layers overlapping not perfectly, state parklands, that portions of the parkland were included that should not have been, parcels that were on the outside of the sewer service area. And that was really the predominance of the evaluation. It was concluding that there are many parcels that are outside the sewer service area, while they may be adjacent, based on the nature of our sewer service area, the available capacities we have, and the intent of our utility to provide water quality benefits to the lake, and specifically for existing development and having existing development converted over to sewer, there was no viability from a planning perspective for those parcels. So we've recommended they be removed. In doing so, the numbers come down to a land capacity allocation factor of 1.54 instead of 2.21. And then we take that along with the 0.29 and the 0.81 I spoke of earlier as the other two factors, averaging to a average allocation factor of 0.88. So we reduced from 1.10 to 0.88 of the overall region. And that drove the calculation from 206 units identified originally by DCA to our recommendation of so it was 306 units down to 244 units. So that is about a 20% reduction in the total amount of units that would be in front of you to accept tonight.
Are we able to get a copy of that report?
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that specify the approved parcels post-evaluation?
It identifies the parcels to be removed from the calculation.
Okay.
So we have a table inside of this. So my memorandum includes discussion of the legislation, the process and methodology of DCA, identifies the DCA's analysis and their published conclusions, and then our what we call the supplemental analysis. That supplemental analysis is in chart form, identifying the object ID for each of the 31 features that I identified to be removed, providing the acreage of them. I then identified lots and blocks and addresses that are affiliated with that, so you can take a look at that as well. And then next to that, put characteristics, those characteristics being the reasoning and justification for removal. The data set is available in GIS, it's publicly available. And we have created our own mapping product to evaluate it against some of these different constraints for our analysis that can be shared, and to the municipality. So if anyone would like to see some of the actual features, and that's some of the process we went through with your attorney and your administrator, walking through where these parcels were and why we're.
And once we've accepted this, what do you feel the next step is going to be in this,
So
especially timetable wise?
sure, it's a little bit of planning as well as legal, right? So this is our first step in preserving our rights of zoning and our protections. So tonight's action is it's one or the other. It's accepting their numbers or providing our justification and accepting a reduced number. With that, we'll make a filing within 48 hours, and that will preserve our rights. From that point, it's subject to appeal, essentially. And so if there was an objector that brings a case forward, they will bring that case forward, looking at the totality of the 78 features like we had in a comparable analysis, and provide an alternative opinion. I guess that would, in theory, also include fair share housing as one of those.
Yeah,
protections.
but so the timetables here are, I don't know, they're almost unprecedented.
So we have until the February 28th to file that appeal. We have to accept this by the 31st and then file that appeal by the 28th.
No, we file within 48
Yeah,
hours.
so-
An
so-
objector.
Well, I'm sorry, the
has-
deadline to appeal.
For an objector.
Right.
Has one more month then.
Okay.
Correct, so if, but I should say, when you pass this tonight, this resolution gets filed with the DCA with Joe's memo attached, that's the way it's set up. And the declaratory judgment action gets filed within 48 hours. It's done, it's ready to go. And it's based upon these numbers. And then, as was pointed out, if you have an objector, the objector will object to your reduction within the time period provided. And then at that point, there'd be some fact-finding process that we're just not sure what it's gonna be yet. We do know the judge who's unlucky enough to have been assigned all these cases in Sussex and Morris, and that doesn't seem like a fun job. I would predict that you would not have an appeal in Hopatcong, and I would predict that fair share housing will not intervene in Hopatcong. I know they're gearing up to intervene in a lot of places, but Hopatcong will not be one of them.
Part of this conversation is that the calculation we do is is limited to our municipality and our acreage that we're reducing, also coming out of the denominator, which is the region. Now, we're one municipality of many in the region. Every other municipality that chooses to submit a reduced number will also be reducing the denominator. So there is a mathematical iteration that could occur, whether or not there's a legal process to provide that to whether it be fair share housing or any other objector. Essentially, if we're only taking credit for our reduction, our percentage difference to 0.88 from 1.1 has not yet been adjusted for anybody else that files an action.
And in the larger picture, I don't want to get bogged down on this tonight, but you know, it's worth you knowing. I mean, the larger picture is, you know, municipalities as part of your master plan are supposed to have a housing element that's supposed to accommodate the affordable housing mandates. And so Hopatcong has not either not done that or not done that extensively recently. And part of the reason is you don't have a lot of the elements that would lead to a bad consequence from the affordable housing mandates. You don't have, you know, a 20-acre farm field, you know, adjacent to, you know, public sewer laterals in the road, right? That's the disaster where a builder could come in and say, you know, the town could say, we want 20 houses there, and the builder would say, that's great, I'm gonna build 400 townhouses and shove them down your throat. So you don't have that in Hopatcong, but these numbers are large. This next 10 years is gonna be highly scrutinized. And I think that Hopatcong will have to be very diligent in pursuing the housing element as part of your master plan, so that you make whatever the best faith attempt is to provide for affordable housing. You know, and I wouldn't want Joe's job, because I'm not exactly sure how, you know, you're gonna make a plausible plan that we have, you know, 244, you know, possible units to be built in Hopatcong. But what you're guarding against in Hopatcong primarily is vertical. Your danger in Hopatcong is not the farm field with the sewer located nearby where somebody's going to build a very high density of apartments or townhouses. Your danger is that a builder comes into town, sees that you're non-compliant with your affordable housing plan, and comes in and says they want to do 6 stories lakefront. And you say, oh, no, we're not agreeing to that. And they say, okay, we'll make 30% affordable housing in our 6-story building. And all of a sudden, you know, a judge thinks that's a great idea because you're getting affordable housing. That's the danger.
What we call the builder's remedy, that process. So the tough task at hand is, after we move forward with this, we go into our fair share housing element of our master plan. And we look at, in this analysis, there's 78 features, only 43 acres, right? So that's roughly a half an acre per feature. Right? We're talking about existing subdivided parcels, vacant land in between residential homes, right? The viability of delivering that original 306 is not feasible even without some of these other environmental constraints, because the housing itself can't be conducted in density. So what we look at with your fair share housing plan and with your master plan is, are there appropriate areas for redevelopment, areas of rehabilitation, other areas where we can provide opportunities as a course of action that any developer can entertain and do the due diligence on, that would protect us from a builder's remedy in a portion of our municipality that is just inappropriately against the zoning in that area, and not expose ourselves to courts and a remedy through the courts for a builder.
And that plan and that process will unfold over many months.
Right. So, right, the idea is inclusionary zoning. That's what we dealt with the prior rounds, and adopting changes in the zone plans. And so then you in your fair share housing element, you start to identify the parcels that are appropriately accommodated in your zoning plan. So we look to where it should be and where it shouldn't be in the municipality and provide inclusionary zoning as opposed to exclusionary. And that's what would subject us to appeals.
But passing this resolution tonight and getting both the resolution filed and the DJ action filed, that's the only thing that's on your plate right now. The rest of it will unfold over, months and throughout the year.
March 1st will be a good day.
But you will be hearing a lot about this year.
Is this gonna have the same consistency as when they had the third round, when we had it back then? Hopakon, especially, you've been through here, you've been through land use with us now. You're very well aware that our utilities do not exist and
Yeah.
cannot take a builder that's gonna build 300 units, 600 units, those kinds of things. In reading through some of the DCA's reports and whatnot, it says that does come into play, but it doesn't seem to be coming into play with our numbers because we don't have a fully sewered area. You can't put 300 units on a septic. We don't have functioning city water throughout the entire town.
Right.
We're not so desirable for those builders remedy
So
suits.
I say in prior years, if there's any concern over lack of action taken, as Mr. Hirschman said, the municipality is particularly suited based on its constraints, environmentally and topographically, rock, everything, right? That, and particularly the intent of our sewer service area, why it was created, why we have water extending in certain areas, and why it's not feasible to extend the water to provide service to another area or sewers to another area. It's really about protecting this watershed into the lake and the water quality benefits. It's part of the Highlands initiatives and everything else. So all of those things, aside from any actions taken to directly address this, are protections of you.
You want to be careful though, because your constraints with respect to water and sewer, you can't get comfortable in thinking that they're a moat to protect you against a builder's remedy suit. Because if a builder wants something enough, the Muscatine County Sewerage Authority has extra allocation. People can build package plans, people can extend lines, people can make applications.
DEP can provide TWAs and other.
So it's not as defensive as a shell as it might be. And there's certain places who will, practically ignore this because they have 5-6 building sites in town and they have some sewer, and they'd be thrilled if somebody came in and built with density. There was places in Warren County where they pretty much just invited builders remedy suits because they were just happy to have,
tax rateable
400 units and they didn't care.
A lot of those 400 units came along with a golf course or some other amenity that was beneficial in those areas, right? And with respect to third round or second round versus fourth round, the prior rounds never really reconciled what I term as like the hanging chads, right? The amount of units that were identified to drop off the table, there was never any reconciliation and iteration to say, okay, this was where we set the bar, this is where you're coming in, and we're agreeing to that number, we're settling on those numbers. No one ever addressed that other perspective need. We would anticipate that similar things happen this time around, that there will be this remainder that is unaddressed and not iterated out to come back to the whole. But we see progress by DCA, by the state, in terms of their methodology, their justifications, the fact that they're transparent this time around by issuing this methodology. While it came late, it came soon enough that we were able to provide a legitimate analysis. And so I think as this story unfolds over the decades, and it will for decades, it'll be part of all of our careers. The good faith of participating, acknowledging it, coming up with a housing plan that we feel meets our community is a defensible position.
it is your defense,
Yeah.
right?
It's the only
It's exactly
defense.
what Joe just said. It's the good faith participation in this process becomes your defense.
You can't think that you're protected with an invincible shield because of something about opinion in a prior round or sewer service area or different constraints. At some point in the future, the priorities of our state, the priorities of development, sprawl, our overall state planning, the initiatives will change. We have to accommodate our population. And what we're here to do is make sure that we're accommodating it appropriately over the decades that lead up to somebody knocking on our door.
And phase 4 is how many years?
10.
10.
A decade?
Now, whether or not, you do your fair share housing element, you identify locations, what you can meet, what you can provide, and if you're on that schedule and you get extensions, that'll be just like the prior rounds, that'll be all over the state, all over everywhere. So 10 years is what we're looking at, but right, the third round didn't conclude with completion of all the units. So this will always be that kind of a iterative process, and you really just have to participate. You can't do what many did previously and ignore it. There is no, Senate Bill S1 from the prior rounds that's gonna perhaps save the day and pull the rug out from everything. Those things are not gonna happen.
Understood.
Mhm.
Anyone have any other questions?
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. That was very good. So you have the resolution in front of you. Is there a motion to pass?
Motion.
I'll second.
And the roll call?
Mr. Falcone,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Kusivic,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
and Ms. Smith.
She said yes.
Thank you.
Did you get me?
Got you. We got you.
Okay.
We got you. Okay. Next, we're moving on to executive session for matters of personnel, interviews of candidates to fill the council vacancy seat. So we are going to go into closed session. So can I have a motion for that?
Yeah, really quick, Mayor. Danielle just asked that we announce if anybody's on the line listening, we are going to be disconnecting the Zoom link and we will reopen the link once executive session is over. Thank you.
Yeah, I know, but like I said, I mean, look who's appointing these people, right? I don't think you're gonna agree with any of the decisions. I'm sure, but they basically just said, I don't wanna do this.
Oh, shit. Oh, shit.
We're live.
She sent us that report already.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
I wanted to thank her. She's not here.
She's not here.
She's at home.
Do we need Shelley back or?
No, she'll be, I think she'll have.
So we have a motion and a second to come out of executive session. Do we need a motion to go back into-
No, once you come out of closed session, you're back in open.
So we are back into open session. We have just come out of executive session for the matters of personnel for interviewing candidates to fill the council vacancy from Councilman Bradley Hoperkamp. What is the council's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to nominate Anthony Bongiovanni for council seat.
A second.
Any discussion?
Christine, do you have any discussion? I just want to make sure you can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you. No, I agree. I'm fine with it.
Okay, we're not voting yet, but, and the roll call?
Mr. Falcone,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Kukovic.
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Yes.
And Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Okay, congratulations. Thank you all for coming in this evening. We appreciate you all. You were all wonderful candidates. The council has voted for Anthony Bongiovanni. I am going to swear you in this evening, so you will actually be official immediately.
Yeah, you're not going to home, so you
Can we
gotta
do-
work now,
Can
so.
we do like a,
We will,
okay, like a,
the ceremony.
Ceremony.
thank you. I couldn't think of the word.
I'm still gonna get pictures.
Well, yeah, but I'm sure you.
You good?
I want my husband.
I just forgot a pen.
Kyle.
This is good. Oh, yeah, God, well, you're good. Okay, you are going to raise your right hand and you're gonna put your left hand on the Bible. I,
I,
state your name,
Anthony Bongiovanni,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New Jersey,
of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will
and that I will
bear true faith
bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments
and to the governments
established
established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state
and in this state,
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
I do further
I do further
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will impartially
that I will impartially
and justly
and justly
perform
perform
all the duties
all the duties
of the office of council member
of the office of council member
according
according
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
So you can join us in the first council meeting. Your seat is going to be right here.
Is that a little thingy for him?
We don't have a thingy for you because we didn't know it was you.
We're not like an NBA or NFL that we already
He
have.
does have one of those. Thank
Oh,
you.
look at that.
Thank you.
I'm gonna look
All
for
from
it.
the land use board.
Oh, it'll be in the other one.
There's only one more.
Jennifer's in the other one. That was ours. So the other one will be, it should be in the other one.
Hey, Jim, thanks for coming out. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You
You too,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Okay, so welcome, Mr. Bongiovanni.
Thank you.
We don't have much to do left on the agenda, but I did want you to participate. So our last part on the meeting is,
Motion to adjourn.
yeah, our last part is a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Sounds like a-
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Question, since he got, like, ran in and sworn in, can we maybe do a next one like with his family?
oh, no, of course, yeah, of
Okay.
course, of
Cause I was
course.
gonna say, he looks like we rushed him in.
Steve saw a squirrel. You see that?
Yeah,
No,
you did. Yeah.
Saw something shiny.
You did
We
see
said
it.
that. We had all conversations.
Oh, did you?
No,
Oh.
I wanted to make sure that I had everything to swear him in this evening because it has to be done by the sheriff.
Okay.
So when we have it, I'll speak to you before the fifth about being able, we'll do another ceremony on the fifth for you, but we'll talk about that.
Oh, you have it
I
already?
mean, if you're doing that just for me,
It's a land
it's
use board.
not really necessary, but
It's necessary for the public.
Yes.
that's fine, okay, all right.
It really is.
Yeah,
It
okay.
really
Good
is.
for your family.
Some people might watch this meeting and some people might not.
Right, you need to submit a letter